welcome to the Nitschke Podcast. Today again, Maddie Nitschke, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
No worries.
But today we're going to have a bit of a chat, aren't we, about the spring selling season and what that means for anyone who's thinking of getting their house ready for the market, what's involved in that, and just unpack it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe put you in the hot seat a little bit and just dig out a bit of your knowledge. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll crumble under pressure, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, probably the burning question to start off, what are some of the current trends you're seeing in the market at the moment? How are we looking?
I mean, it's been an incredible period in the market that we've had, we've just come out of an incredible growth period in the market, and prices have leapt forward, properties have sold really strongly, which has been great news for sellers. It's been really challenging for buyers, and we now find ourselves in a realer market, that there's still great results happening. Really proud of the efforts of our team. We've had some incredible results right through 2022 so far, but it's a market in spring traditionally where you see more competition. So whilst it's great to see the weather slowly improving after winter, the gardens start to bloom, roses come out, everything's happening. The reality is that most other sellers have a similar idea. And we also have at the moment a situation where sellers are trying to chase the market we've just had to, see if they can still get a result from that. And so you are going to see more supply, which is going to make it more competitive.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I guess the next question, which you've probably covered off on it a little bit, hinted there, but what's the best season in the Hills to sell in?
See, this might surprise you. Look, spring is not a bad time to sell. That's not surprising. However, most people have that same idea. Mm-hmm. So you will find that a lot of sellers will target that time of year. I think, there's opportunities in all markets, all seasons. We're not an overly seasonal market, but I love the autumn market for sellers, because traditionally what happens is you do see supply levels taper a little bit. So what that means in real terms is not quite as much other properties competing with yours to find a buyer. The area is stunning, equal to, if not surpassing, spring, just with the beautiful colours and just, the beautiful conditions really of that time of year. You're far enough away from winter. So I think, can you get results in the peak of summer and winter? Of course you can, but I'd be targeting autumn or spring in our market.
Yeah, look, the Hills is pretty special in autumn and spring, isn't it? And that's what I was thinking, whether you try to get the end of spring and into summer, still where, the weather's not too bad, not hitting Christmas yet. That might be a good time too. Like you say, the supply drops off a little bit and it might be the right time to finish the year off well, I suppose.
It's interesting, Maddie, because if you really measure it, like if you go heavy on data, and we won't do that too much in the pod today, but if you really look at numbers, the sale price result isn't really impacted. So if you're purely looking at the financial outcome of the sale, it doesn't really matter when you decide to sell. But, clearly those two seasons have, they're a nice time of year to do it.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I guess, do you have a top 5 list of things you should do as a vendor if you're going to market, whether you've spoken to an agent yet or not, but what should you be thinking about?
Top 5. I can't even count that high.
Well, you have to really dig deep.
No, I sure do. Our team, we're so big on preparation. And I think when you're dealing with a competitive market, if you prepare well, you will sell well. So it's worth taking the time. I guess it's kind of like that 80-20 principle. If you spend 80% of your effort and concentration in the beginning getting the property prepared well for sale, the remaining 20% on the market will be much more straightforward.
Yeah, true.
So we're very hands-on as our vendors need us to be. It's a big value add that we bring where, let's say you're tuning into today's podcast and you're like, okay, we got to sell this thing. It's time to move. We've outgrown our home. You might have lived there for, 7 or 8 years. There's a bit of wear and tear and you don't really know where to start. I think a lot of people make the mistake of engaging an agent. They think that you need to get us round when it's ready for photos. Mm-hmm. But there's so much value we can add at no extra cost, I might add. to come in much earlier. We love early. Early, the result's going to be better, as I said, prepare well. So quite often one of the things that we'll recommend to begin with is to kind of begin with the end in mind. So the first thing would be to get a pre-sale building inspection. We're really big on that.
Yeah, great.
It's not something that is required under legislation. I've talked about it on previous editions of the podcast before that, you know, when you look at a building inspection, a lot of people go, particularly if this is a foreign concept, they go, well, doesn't the buyer do that? And you're right, they do most of the time. The problem is that that's happening so far down the process where you've prepared the property, you've had a budget to prepare your house for sale, you've spent, you know, money painting, gardens, whatever, getting it ready, and that budget's now gone. And then the buyer gets you've negotiated an outcome, and then in the cooling off period, or if you're choosing to auction the property leading into auction day, a buyer that's looking really good for it gets a building inspection and finds out that your bathroom's knackered, or there's an issue that is actually not overly expensive but is time consuming to fix. And you're asking a buyer you're asking them to act rationally in a really irrational time. Like the cooling off period, the anxiety spikes because
absolutely
it's a very basic principle of selling. It's cognitive dissonance where they basically doubt the thing they've just bought naturally. We all do it, you know, when you're buying a car, when you're buying things from the groceries, you think, oh, hang on, I've spent too much on that, what have I done? So you really can't ask a buyer to act rationally there, whereas if you get one done as a seller and you do it early, you're doing it before you spend any other money, you can get a lay of the land. Now, if the report's good, amazing, then no stress. You can go on the market in time knowing there's no issue. And the great thing about a pre-sale inspection is that you can do that really early. You could do it 6 months out from being ready to go on the market. You will need to get the inspector back to look at it so that the dates line up with their warranty periods and all that sort of stuff. But that's a minor detail in the context of you can prepare as early as you like. So that would be the first one for sure. And then from there, we're really then focusing on the basics. So when you're living in a property, and we all know this, there's wear and tear, that little niggles that you know about. So there's the loose doorknob on that door, and there's the creaky, you know, another door's a bit creaky, and you've got the fly screen where the dog's, you know, been over energetic every night when you come home from work. So all of that sort of stuff, you really do need to put a bit of a to-do list. And what our team helps you with is a to-do list and a to-don't list. We really want to make sure that everyone's got a limited budget. Some have a bigger budget than others, but we can align that budget up to what's realistic to get the maximum impact. So you get those niggles sorted, hopefully. You know, we live in a perfect world.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, then you start to look at then decluttering and then ultimately staging the property. So, you know, that decluttering piece, we have a great relationship with the styling creative, and quite often we involve their expertise at this moment, because as much as we are in the industry, I should say, and we know what works and what has worked for other clients, so we can share case studies. Gabby and Tali and the team there, they have an intimate knowledge of what works, and they've just got this ability to make, and I say this with respect to people with their homes, but make something out of nothing. Like sometimes if you're not naturally knowing how that's going to work, they can know straight away what has to come out and what needs to go in. Now, there is a cost involved with that, but I'm a big believer that if you've got the budget to pay for it, you'll more than double your money. It's simple as that. We've got many examples where clients have had the courage to do it, and the home comes backstage looking amazing. It can often help with the sale process, because it helps you to declutter your items that you don't need to take to the next house anyway. So it's a really important step. So that would be a third. I've got to come up with 5. I'll do it easily. It's all right. I could come up with 6 maybe. No. So then the next one then would be really considering how you market the property. Our team will guide you there, but it's important as the market gets more and more competitive to get a buyer and to get the best result you can. We've transitioned from a market that is a bit of a turnstile where the buyers are everywhere, that there's still a lot of interest, but it's a bit more challenging. What you need to do is market the property very, very well. You've got to consider the world that we're in and the changing dynamic. There's been a lot that's come out of COVID that has been adopted that's actually helped the industry to transact. I was only talking to someone earlier today that has bought a property interstate, sight unseen. We're getting a lot of sight unseen interest. So making sure your home is virtual ready, meaning professional photos, amazing plans and floor plans drawn, clear copywriting, pointing out the clear features of the property, and then a video tour. I've been a big believer on video for years. It hasn't been as affordable as what it is today and as easy to turn around. It used to take weeks to edit, used to be thousands of dollars to produce. Now it's so much more affordable. Buyers love it because it gives them an instant sense of what the property's like, the atmosphere of the home. And then obviously where you're putting it out to, so considerations around signage, brochures, maybe some printed media, but certainly your websites like realestate.com and Domain, for example. And our team's expertise can guide you. And that's a really good segue to the fifth and most important thing to do, and that's to engage someone from Nitschke to sell your home.
Absolutely.
I'm absolutely unbiased in recommending that. I'm a neutral participant of the podcast, but quite genuinely, I love our team. We've got a special group of people. We are huge believers on human first, real estate second. We've got a wealth of knowledge to share with anyone in our community or outside of our community but owns real estate in our community that needs guidance. And I believe that if you engage an Nitschke agent to sell your property, you will get more for it and you'll have a much better experience. So I think if you can hit those 5, it'll go pretty well.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I have to agree with point 5. I'm a bit biased too, aren't I? But
Shocking.
I'm property management based, but I've seen what yourself and the sales team do. I've also seen, the support you have in other team members that help the sales team.
That's so true.
From sale to settlement and marketing and everything in between. So I think we're pretty special too. I guess one other question might be a little bit boring, but I was just thinking of it then, is when should you engage like a conveyancer or anything like that? Is that something to think about before you're on the market, or?
The poor conveyancers, it's funny, they're so important, and we know some incredible conveyancers that we have a great relationship with. And I say poor conveyancers because they're so underestimated. Without them, the industry would fall apart, and they're so important. I think it's funny, with conveyancing too, because you really value a conveyancer more when you realise you've got a bad one.
Yeah.
And we've seen clients that have been stuffed around with poor preparation and all those sorts of things. A good conveyancer will love being engaged really early. I know that there's a lot that they can do with getting your ID checks done. They can talk to you about obviously your Form 1s and ordering those at the right time. But it's just also they're essentially your legal and structural support from start to finish. So you don't need to wait until you've landed a buyer for your property and you've gone through cooling off and settlements in 6 weeks. Do it as early as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say as you're assembling your property team and maybe you've engaged your mortgage broker to get your pre-approvals ready for the property you might be buying on the back of selling the current one, and you've engaged one of the Nitschke team to sell your home, that's the very next phone call. It's got to be your conveyancer.
Yeah. Get all your ducks in a row. Because, if things move quickly, you want to be prepared, don't you? So you don't want to be left at the lurch at the last minute. So
100%, seriously. They will not charge you more for that. It actually makes their job so much easier. So it's a really good thing to do.
Beautiful. So anything else you want to add at the end? Yeah, I think you've covered off on a lot. And as I say, what the team do here within the building is fantastic. But anything else you want to add for vendors heading into the season?
Yeah, I guess a parting comment would be really price is always a really hot topic for people when they're selling, and it's probably a step and it's a really important step that I didn't reveal when we were talking about that sort of 5-step process. Obviously, preparation and marketing and engaging us, but then the best prepared properties in the world could be remained unsold due to the price being way too high or misrepresented. So your asking price is really important. And in my experience in real estate, and our team have followed this principle with a lot of success over many years now, we find it's the process, not the promise of a price, that's going to lead you to the best outcome. Any agent that maybe doesn't have integrity or their moral compass pointing true north, they could say any figure, but it's really got to be the process that leads to the outcome. And if you can get your property beautifully presented, marketed incredibly well in the hands of a great agent, priced appropriately so the buyers see value, and then those buyers are engaging competitively to secure it, the skilled agent leveraging that outcome, which of course will be a Nitschke agent, will get you the best outcome. And it will help you in a market that continues to change all the time as we get into spring. Our team are there for you, and we'd love to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And thanks for the opportunity for me to put you in the hot seat.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for being a part of the pod again.
Thanks for having me.
No worries.